If you are a beverage marketer and you want to learn more about the influencer landscape, we analyzed what creators Cometeer has sponsored again and again, and which ones would be a good pick for them in the future. So what you can do is actually take these picks and apply them into your own influencer strategy. We found in total 114 videos were sponsored. And what we looked at was who did they repeatedly sponsor, indicating it was a successful partnership. We first took a step back and looked at the avatars that were being sponsored and found that the types of channels, which were cooking channels and coffee-oriented channels, did really well, whereas interview shows and gadget channels were not performing well. They just got a few sponsor videos and then didn't repeatedly sponsor them. Now, what's interesting is out of these 100 and something sponsored videos, only 17 of the creators were repeatedly sponsored. And if we actually dive into who worked, we found that Sarah's Vegan Kitchen, The Diary of a CEO, Not Another Cooking Show, Claire Saffitz, How to Drink, all of these got a ton of repeating sponsors, especially a show like The Diary of a CEO, which is very expensive, actually got a ton of repeated sponsorships, adding into, I believe, over 10 million views. Now, what we actually looked at is who were the competitors sponsoring? We first started by looking at what amount of influencers they sponsor. We found Mudwater was the highest at 189, Black Rifle was 112, Purity Coffee at 48, and Rise at 59. And what was very interesting was that Cometeer was actually one of the smallest companies in terms of repeat sponsoring creators, which simply means that they were more stringent with the creators, but also means that these creators were of higher quality, whereas Black Rifle spent longer with the creator to feel them out. Now, if we actually look at the avatars that each of them were tailoring towards and trying to attract, what we'll find is quite interesting, and it's that Black Rifle was trying to appeal to hunters and fans of politics and the news. Mudwater was actually trying to appeal to people trying to quit coffee. Rise was really focused on the gardening demographic. Purity Coffee was really focused on parents who were conscious of their health, reading labels. And Life Boost was really focused on people who were watching their intake when it comes to health and the types of ingredients they were taking in. So what Cometeer was taking was the people who talked about cooking channels, and that's what really worked for them. So now what we're going to talk about is what brands should be sponsoring creators in the future and what are the best creators for the value. So what we found is there are 13 creators that would be a really good value pick. One of them is the Better Ever Food Review Show, who consistently gets 1.7 million views per video, and BetterHelp actually sponsored them again 10 times in a row. Bobby Parrish, who had Thrive Market, repeatedly sponsor him 12x times. Max the Meat Guy, who's a very big YouTuber, pulling in 3.3 million views with a ton of repeat sponsors, and How to Cook That. Now, what's interesting here is each of these brands is actually in an adjacent niche, but not a competitor. So if you're a beverage and supplement brand, you can actually go ahead and just take this list, reach out to these creators, and actually get them to sponsor your product. Now here we found which creators actually had the best engagement that were repeatedly sponsored by a lot of brands. Cooking the Books had a whopping 11.7% engagement, and Form Factor paid 11 times for them. Sweet Simple Vegan, Ritual paid 5 times with a 10.3% engagement. My Vegan Kitchen Life, 10.1% engagement, and Cannoli paid 13 sponsored videos. Grains and Grit, 9.8% engagement, and Grand Tenon Ancient Grains paid for 11 sponsored videos. All of these engagements are really good. Now, of course, people can buy engagement, which is why we always suggest before onboarding an influencer, especially a big one, where you're risking a lot of money in the form of an upfront payment or a hybrid deal, you ask for their returning viewers. You could find this in any analytics, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, and it'll basically show you a foolproof metric of how many people return to the channel, which is very hard to fake. And now we actually looked at people who have the best value. So people who have high engagement, high views, and have a lot of repeating sponsors, which includes Lance Hendrick, Daddy Got Coffee, Highfalutin's Low Carb, and Karen San Diego. Note, these all have US predominantly based audiences, which means that a lot of their audience is able to make purchasing decisions and they're able to purchase premium products. Now, out of these, we actually checked, and none of them are actually working with coffee supplement brands. So they would be really good picks if that happens to be your brand. However, what you're not able to look at from this analysis is their exact performance on Instagram and TikTok because we only checked YouTube. And this is also valid for 2026. However, the landscape might change move forward in the years to come. So if you're interested in learning about how to work with these creators, feel free to message us and we can make the whole negotiation process, the messaging process. Otherwise, you can always reach out to them yourselves. Hope this helps.